is Jonathan DiGiacomo, and this is the story of Aaron, a young boy. He used to be very happy, but then something happened, and his father snapped. Ever since then, things haven't been the same, but the time has come for him to face his fears. Teddie and I is a platformer puzzle adventure game about a young boy named Aaron that travels through the mysterious world in his closet alongside his best friend and teddy bear, Teddie, to face the monsters living inside. Unlike most children whose monsters are based on trivial fears, his are based on trauma sustained at his father's hands. The game is about overcoming the trauma and recognizing self-worth by solving puzzles with Teddie's help. The core mechanic of Teddie and I is cooperating with Teddie to solve puzzles using his AI abilities such as interaction with the environment, talking, and giving hints. The key features of Teddie and I are a cooperative AI known as Teddie, environmental puzzles that are intuitive, and finally, a variety of monsters that chase after you. The way our game is played is as a non-stop, side-scrolling experience with automatic checkpoints at predetermined locations. As you progress and Aaron's psychological state changes, so do the puzzles and the monsters. In the game, the player's abilities include A, traversal, such as running, jumping, and climbing. Next, communicating with Teddie, such as giving him directions or talking something out. And finally, equipment such as the walkie-talkies or Aaron's cell phone. This is an example puzzle that I prepared, and in it you can see there's a windmill, there's a ladder, there's a lever, there's this hidden passage back here behind the rocks, and there's a boulder. Upon entering, Teddie asks, do you know where we're supposed to be heading? And in response, it prompts you to point out a direction. Using command, you can tell Teddie where to go. In this case, you point towards the cliff. In response, Teddie asks, any idea how to get there? You can explore your surroundings to figure out what to do next. In this case, since the only thing within reach is a lever, you pull it, which causes sparks to come flying out of the cord where it broke. Luckily for you, Teddie is capable of fixing such mechanisms, assuming you can get him within reach of them. Just as you can carry Teddie, you can also toss him to reach new areas, such as the platform above. These sequences are often coupled with dialogue to keep the player entertained. Thanks to Teddie, you can now activate the lever. However, it causes the world to shake and causes the cave to collapse in, releasing a monster. It begins to approach you. As with other monsters, it'll devour you if it gets you. However, you can use Aaron's cell phone to temporarily stun them, allowing you to perform other actions if they're unavoidable. As in this puzzle, where you can stun the monster to get over to continue pulling on the lever so that way Teddie can reach the ledge. Now, as Teddie can also interact with the environment, he prompts you to bring the monster over, and upon when he pushes a boulder off, crushing it. Now the player and Teddie are left to continue and explore new puzzles and have to cooperate while separated. As I previously mentioned, the two main characters are Aaron and Teddie. Aaron is a young boy that has gone through a lot of misery and woes from the loss of his mother and his father's subsequent abuse. Teddie is Aaron's projection of who he wishes he could be and comes alive within the nightmare world. Throughout the game, the two cooperate and converse heavily to solve puzzles and to progress both physically and emotionally. The other recurring characters are the mother creature and the trauma creature. The mother creature is representative of Aaron's life prior to the loss of his mother and the subsequent abuse. It heavily resembles his mother as such, and the trauma creature is representative of Aaron's dark emotions and trauma. At the end of the game, the player is tasked with defeating it. After much research, it was decided that the game needed to have a darker, more atmospheric visual look to it. As such, the environments are open and vast, but they're also dark, macabre, and full of decaying detail. Colors tend to be darker and more neutral to blend into each other to give off a foggy appearance and a more dreamlike look to the world. We currently have a growing art Bible that provides references. The environments are vast and open. They inspire the player to explore. We currently are considering the following areas: a forest, caves, and finally a cathedral. The following are stylistic references for the monsters. They exist in 3 categories: those that represent Aaron's father's abuse, those that represent his loneliness and depression from the loss of his mother, and those that represent his self-hatred and self-blame for the things that have occurred in his life. As the player progresses, the monsters will sequentially shift between these 3 categories. As such, monsters tend to resemble deformed versions of humans. Our main influences for this game were the following. Our main takeaways from these is that they are uniquely intuitive. This means that although puzzles change from area to area and the mechanics may be a little bit unique, players are restricted to a finite set of actions that they can perform, and also given cues to prevent things from becoming overcomplicated. In addition, we found the games are narratively driven. This means that the story drives the player, and curiosity is their motive. Finally, we found that the games are atmospheric. This means that the world can elicit an emotional response simply by existing. Finally, we also found that the games are also all award-winning, which shows that there is a market and an audience for this genre. Our 3 target audiences are adults who are a fan of atmospheric puzzle adventure games, adults who are fans of atmospheric narrative-driven games, and finally adults that can relate to the main character, Aaron. Although we have chosen to market towards an adult audience, we expect the game will be rated T, and our target platforms are the PlayStation and Windows, using the Unreal Engine. On the left, you'll see a diagram which shows the top-selling supergenres of 2016, and on the right, you'll see the main factors that affect how people decide to buy games. For our game, we fall in the range of 7.8 to 11.9% of all games sold in 2016, and we also touch upon the 3rd most influential region, which is story, in addition to the 2nd most influential region, which is price, with a targeted price range of $15 to $20. These facts give our game excellent market potential and reach. Now to introduce our team. I'm the lead engineer and director of the game. I was previously the lead engineer on a project called Borders, which received international attention, was invited to E3, Sheffield Dogfest, and toured Mexico. I will also be an intern at Santa Monica Studio this summer, which should help a lot with PlayStation 4 development.
I'm Alexander Longezo. I'm the lead designer and also an engineer for the game. I was previously an intern at Toucan Visual Concepts and helped publish NBA 2K18. And I'm currently an intern with Universal Digital Games and Products, and I'm going to be a returning intern at 2K and Visual Concepts this summer.
Our lead producer is Benjamin Connor, and although he cannot be with us today, he is going to be a returning production intern at Activision this summer. And although we don't have a full-time lead artist, we do have a stand-in who is Victoria Cacho, who is currently a student at Roski and has helped us develop the concept art, the art direction, has helped us create our art Bible, and has done all the concept art for this presentation except for the title slide. Our composer is an award-winning graduate from Berklee College of Music. Including our volunteers, this brings us to a current size of 15 people and a possible size of 23 or more, only including the people we are currently talking to. The following is our production plan. As you can see, we have broken it up into 5 stages, each broken down by discipline to make it easier for team leads to direct their teams. Our final product, we intend to be about an hour-and-a-half experience with 3 areas and multiple puzzles per area. Each area will have a certain theme or style to them, which they adhere to. For our game, we identified some key risks. The first one being that Teddie's AI can get really complex. To remedy this, we intend to use a very simplified approach using a bidirectional node-based traversal graph, which essentially will allow us to tell him how to get to different places on the map without getting too complicated, and anything else can either be implemented as additional functionality or by using hard scripted events. The second one is that the player could get bored while Teddie is acting, so to speak, autonomously. To remedy this, we utilize tactics such as making Teddie's success dependent on player input. Another one we do is to keep the player busy with other events or tasks. And another one we do is, as I said previously, is utilize dialogue to keep the player interested. And finally, if Teddie's going to take a particularly long time, we can even teleport him, assuming he's off screen. Finally, we need to present the story appropriately. Given that we are talking about a heavy topic like abuse, we don't want to shock or disturb the players. As such, we utilize more abstract representations than any kind of shocking imagery. In addition, we intend to run the narrative by our players and make sure that it feels right and it's okay. And to prevent bottlenecking, we intend to decouple gameplay from narrative as much as possible. The next risk is that with environmental puzzles, your assets may bottleneck your gameplay creation. To avoid this, we will be using stand-in assets while the puzzles are refined and finalized. Another similar risk is that there's a lot of art. Now, while we can't completely remove this risk, we can mitigate it by utilizing a simplified art style and by reusing assets where possible, and finally continuing to recruit throughout the duration of the project. And the final risk we identified was fitting music and creating the sound design appropriately, because without it, it's kind of like having a horror movie with a laugh track. It doesn't work. To address this, we have brought on a very experienced composer and a very talented sound designer. The sound designer who I will actually be working with at Santa Monica Studio, so I will have plenty of time to get to know him and really develop a relationship. And finally, we intend to iterate by getting player feedback, and then the engineers can also integrate any necessary mixing technologies within reason, of course.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes?
I have a question and a comment. The question is, will this be a 3D asset game constrained in camera so that it has 2D elements?
Yes, it will be. We intend to use 2.5D with 3D assets because it is a lot easier to modify assets on the go, especially if you wanted to do something like changing animation. We hope that this should really help to alleviate the art issue.
Okay. And as for the comment, you already addressed this in your slide deck. You basically were giving great care with results as relates to the content of the game, which is abuse. It's going to be a tricky subject, particularly to do as an entertainment product. One thing that I would recommend that you do is check out Psychonauts by Double Fine. They take on the idea of psychological distress, and that is the prevailing theme throughout the entire game. And they do it very, very cleverly with all kinds of anecdotal stories and backgrounds for each of the characters. So that would be an excellent game for you guys to study.
Okay. You said Psychonauts first?
Psychonauts.
Okay. Thank you.
Spelled with a P.
Yes?
Well, first, I love the idea. I think it's great.
Thank you.
And have you played Papa and Yo?
No, but I've heard great things.
It's a very similar concept. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's about a kid and his imaginary friend to escape their abusive father on the surface level. But you should definitely check that out because I think you could learn a lot from that game.
That sounds super familiar. I think I might have played it. Any other questions or comments?
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much.